everybody, it's Michelle LaVore and
Devin LaVore
coming at ya. And a huge welcome to everyone. We're so glad that you're here, and we just pray that you are blessed by what the Lord has to share today, and just with all the videos that that He has us put out. It's just our hearts that you guys are blessed by that, and also huge thank you to everyone who continues to help support us. We just give you a big hug and say thank you.
You guys are amazing.
Huge thank you.
Yes.
We appreciate each and every one of you. And on that note, we are support-based, and as we come into the weekend, we're always needing support for the next week. So if you would like to support us, you can. We have a PayPal link below, and you can just click that.
Yeah.
So I think that's it for announcements.
Announcements are done. So today, guys, what we wanted to talk to you about was something, by the title you can tell, is kind of super mega simple, but at the same time, it's, I really feel like it is the lifeblood. No, it wouldn't be the blood of your walk with God. It's the veins in which the blood of your life with God circulates, you know. The blood is God Himself, the Spirit of God, His Word. But what's the, blood is a liquid. It travels through those little tubes called veins. What is the veins of, and of course the veins of the body that travels the blood and all that. Without that, you can't have life, right? Well, what are the veins of our walk with God? Well, that's faith. Faith is what God uses to work anything and everything in our lives. So how do we walk by faith? How does it happen? Well, it happens when you hear. And when you hear from God, you step out in it believing that it's from the Lord, and you just kind of go with it, whatever the it is that you've heard from the Lord. And the scripture is very clear on this, from like Genesis to Revelation. Genesis, Abram heard from the Lord, and he heard a promise. He heard this, like, wow, this is really worth me laying my life down for and leaving my family, leaving everything. Genesis 12, and just going after the Lord and just seeing what happens, see what kind of journey He's getting ready to take me on. What kind of life is this gonna, and every single person, Hebrews chapter 11, even in Hebrews chapter 11, it says time does not permit to go into all the other ones in this great hall of people who walked by faith, and seeing how their lives turned out. Well, what does that mean? Well, when you hear from the Lord, you get to this place where you hear from the Lord perfectly, and everything works out perfectly, and it yeah.
We all wish.
Yeah, that does not happen. Particularly when you look at some of the people listed in the Hebrews chapter 11 who walked by faith and all that. And Abraham, he had some lying issues, didn't he? It's like the bottom line is every person's going to have issues. But your ability to hear, like I could have major issues, but my ability to hear Michelle talking to me is not hindered by all of my multitude of issues. So if God is speaking to you and He's leading you, your issues don't prevent you from hearing from the Lord. They might prevent you from acting out on what you've heard. And the acting out is the faith. It's not hearing. Hearing from the Lord is not the faith. Everyone can hear. You can't get saved technically unless you hear and sense and begin going with the flow of what God's doing in your life, even if you don't know it's the Lord. You're sensing something, you're feeling something, and you're dissatisfied with your life in general. It's got to be more to life than this. And you begin to seek out. What you do come to realize later, if you get saved, is, oh wow, that was God working in my life that whole time. I was hearing from Him. Because it's not always like a, hey, Michelle, I want you to go open that window. And that's not, no. 80% of the time, that is not it.
Yeah.
It's mostly impressions and leadings and just like, hey, come here. You know what I mean? Of course, a lot of times God does speak to us specifically, words in English in our head or in your native language. He will do that. But it's like, mostly it comes down to hearing. Now, when you hear, now you've got a decision to make. What are you going to do? And whatever you do is going to be an expression of your faith or lack of. It's like, oh, I believe this is from the Lord, therefore I go. You know, most, I'd say 98.7% of our channel is faith-based. Just allotting some room for some soulish stuff in there, you know. But the bottom line is our hearts are 100% faith. It's like we believe this is what the Lord's saying, and so we throw it out there. We put it out there. That's why confirmations are so like explosive and encouraging, because then someone else is putting out this word and that word or this word, and you go, oh wow, someone else heard that too. We don't even know each other. We don't even talk. We've never met. Nothing. You know, they're in Ireland somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Or in South Africa or whatever, or in Texas. Holla. Anyway, but but the bottom line is, like, it's like God has all these blessings. You know, I'll open up the windows of heaven. God has all these blessings that are set on the windows of heaven. And by faith, you open that window. And then boom, what God has already provided, what he's already done, goes into your life when you get saved. Jesus died 2,000 years ago. You're not going to, oh, well, Lord, I just pray and then Jesus dies or something. No, it's already been provided. You know, it's a lot of times like welfare. You know, welfare in the government, it's already provided. You just go and you access what's already there. You know, if you have a trust fund, you know, you're just going and accessing what's already there.
Yeah.
And by you going and accessing, that's the faith. Because you heard, hey, if you take this card and go put it in the machine and type in the numbers, you get this money. Your act of going and doing it, that's faith. Just hearing it and going, I don't know about that. I'm not going to do that. Well, then you didn't have faith. And Jesus was always talking about, do you believe that I can do this? Do you know, according to your faith, may it be done unto you? Because it's like when you have faith, you're open. But when you don't have faith, you're closed. And it doesn't matter how much water you pour into a bottle that's got the cap on it, it's not going in. It can be miraculous gloriousness from God. It's not going in the bottle. You know what I'm saying? But if you open up and say, Lord, I do believe, boom, that's all you need. You need to have just a little tiny opening, and it's getting in there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so faith comes by hearing, and hearing the word of God. So when you hear from the Lord, you know, and so did you want to talk about the stretching part, or what? You seem like you were itching to say something.
I do. Well, I just wanted to kind of talk about, you know, as far as like the hearing from the Lord.
Oh, sure.
And just personally,
Good segue.
kind of how the Lord has grown me, because I feel like, you know, for a lot of us, it's like we want to hear from the Lord, and we want to hear from him perfectly, and we want to just like, all right, I heard from the Lord, it's the right word from the Lord, and you just step out and it's like, whoa, look at, you know, this is what happens, and all those things. And so, you know, but the truth is, it's like, it's a lot of times it's a process. It's like, yes, we have, it's kind of like a baby. You know, they're born, they have everything they need for life, you know, when they're born, but they don't know how to use all of it yet. They don't know how to walk yet. They don't know how to talk. They don't know how to eat, but they're going to learn that through the growing up process, you know, and there's going to be development. And I feel the same way it is with a word. It's like, when you come to Jesus, you have everything pertaining to life and godliness, but there is a growth and a maturing that takes place with us for our whole lives. It's not like, ooh, you finally arrive at this place and you're, you know, completely 100% mature. It's like, no, God is continually maturing us in him until we're finished here on earth, or until Jesus returns. And so for me, there really has been, I can just really see how the Lord has moved in me as far as being able to hear from him, hearing from him in lots of different ways. You know, about when I was college age, or it was probably like 21 or so, you know, I was really praying for the Lord, like, okay, what do you want me to do, that sort of thing. And the scripture that he gave me was actually Genesis 12:1, and it was talking about leave your family and go to the place that I'm going to show you. And that's exactly what I ended up doing. And how was that scripture? I was just reading it, and it really just stuck out to me. And a lot of times that's like an impression from the Lord. Maybe you're just reading and it's like, man, your heart just kind of attaches to a particular scripture. And it's like, whoa. And it's not that, oh, this sounds like a cool scripture. No, it's just like there is something that your spirit attaches to.
Just lights up like the John the Baptist leapt in the womb of Elizabeth when Elizabeth heard the voice of Mary.
Yeah.
It's that same sense, like, whoa, that's it, you know?
And so it was just like, I was like, oh, okay.
Your spirit recognizes something that maybe your soul doesn't even understand yet.
Yeah.
And
it's like, I didn't hear anything from the Lord. It wasn't like the Lord said, hey, this is what I want you to do.
Michelle, go from your family.
No. But it really was by reading that, it was like, oh, that's what the Lord wants me to do. And so that's what I ended up doing. I actually literally left, and I lived in Croatia for an entire year, and doing ministry things there. And
that was a faraway land.
It was a faraway, but it was a place that the Lord showed me. It was like, okay, this is where I want you to be. And even, there are just different ways that the Lord moves in our lives. But yes, there have been times when, we have experienced where it's like the Lord is, we lived in Indiana for a while, and, the Lord was really, He was giving us quite a few of these similar scriptures that have just been with us. The Lord, He sometimes highlights scriptures in your life, and it's like they are just with you. And there has been particular scriptures that we still have with us because they pertain to the promises that God has been sowing in our lives for so long. But we had them when we were in Indiana, and at that time it was just like, ooh, well, what about this and what about that? And maybe the Lord's saying, like, we should go this direction. And so, at first it's like, okay, well, let's try and go this direction. And it's like, okay, things aren't working out, Okay, Lord, well.
And it's not that the things aren't working out. Things aren't working out in the natural. But in your spirit, the more you go down this path, the less peace you have. The more it's just
And it's not like you're in disobedience to the Lord. You're learning. Yeah. You're learning to hear the voice of the Lord. You're learning, okay, this is what it's like when it isn't the Lord. This is what it's like when it is the Lord. And it doesn't always look the way that you think. Because even being on this journey, it's like it's been so clear that the Lord has spoken, but especially in 2017, it was like, did we really hear from the Lord? Because it's not looking at all like I thought it would be. But that doesn't mean that you haven't heard from the Lord because things aren't working out the way you pictured they would. But overall, it's like we have to trust that God is greater than even our ability to hear Him.
Come on now.
And He is greater.
Come on now you're touching on it. It's about Him and His ability.
Yes.
Not your ability. It doesn't even come down to your ability to hear.
Yeah.
It is His ability to speak and move. And then what are you going to do with how He speaks and how He moves?
Exactly.
That's the faith. But anyway, keep going.
But it's like we have to trust that He is able to lead us and guide us where we need to go. We might be feeling like we're pinballing back and forth, but God still has us moving in a certain direction. And as we continue to move in those directions, it's like I don't know, I really see it. It's almost like, here you might start off with, there's my hands. And
here we go. There we go.
So, it might be this wide and you're kind of going back and forth like, oh, I don't know if I'm hearing the Lord, but He still has this place for you where it's like you're not going to go outside those boundaries. But then as you continue to just move, your ability to really hear and focus in on the Lord, those boundary lines become smaller and smaller. And so it's easier to, you're not bouncing back so much, and you're like, okay, that really is the Lord that I'm hearing. Even for myself, just on particularly this part of the journey, I've really realized there are certain areas where they can be areas of weakness. The time frame is one of them. But I really felt like at the beginning of this year, God's like, I want to speak to you, but just write it down. It's like, just write it down. Because then, by me writing it down, it's taking a step of faith. It's going out and being like, all right, I'm going to write this down, even if I'm afraid to write certain things down. But then it allows me to really see, like, okay, wow, this was really the Lord. This down here, I can tell how my ideas, my soul, my, thinking started to come in, and that wasn't the Lord. But even in that, it's almost like, for me personally, I really haven't gone back too much. I really feel like the Lord's kind of had me in this place of, like, don't look back. It's more of just, like, I want you to write it down. It's written down. I know, obviously I've written it down, so it's, like, inside of me, Sure. I've taken the words of the Lord, but as we've progressed, I'm like, oh, okay, it's become more clear. And God's really used that as a tool for me to really start saying, okay, in the area of time frame, he really has just blinded me to the time frame, and because it's been something that's so just like my heart had been trying to attach to it so much, he's like, I'm not giving you that. And so every time I've ever heard oh, it's going to happen maybe in the next couple of weeks, it's going to be on this date, maybe it's going to be this date, it's like it never works out that way. And I've just learned now, it's like, okay, God doesn't have that. And so I can be free now to just allow the Lord to just kind of speak to me, and I don't have to attach like a time frame to it, even though it's still so easy to do. Your brain is just like, ooh, well, what about this one? But it's just been a process, and I think with the Lord, we really have to allow him to take us through the process of life. There is not a single thing in life that we do that as soon as we learn it, we're masters at it. Yeah. There's nothing. There's always a process. Sometimes it's shorter than others. Some take a long time. And, with the Lord, he's just like, allow me to take you through the process. Trust me enough that as you pursue me, I am going to make sure you're going in the direction. Yeah. And I truly can say that for our life, like, and of just how the Lord, no matter what the certain things have been that we thought we were hearing from the Lord, but they haven't been, particularly time frames and things like that. It's like God the whole time has walked right there with us, and he's like, I'm there with you, and I'm pushing you, and I'm still keeping you going in the right direction. And you just, I think a perfect picture of it also is just the shepherd with sheep. A shepherd the sheep aren't in a straight line following this small little path, and it's like 1 foot right in front of the other kind of
marching type of thing.
They don't. Sheep, they just kind of herd them, and that's really what the Lord does. He allows us some freedoms, and he just keeps us going in the right direction. And so we don't need to be afraid. I think so much of the time when it comes to hearing from the Lord, we get very afraid. And it's like, God's like, no, I want you to just rest in me. And if you are afraid, talk to the Lord about it. Say, God, I'm afraid that this isn't you. And another thing too is a lot of times when you're hearing from the Lord, if you feel like a pressure or an anxiety or a push, like a drive, like I got to get this done right now, and a lot of times, like for me personally and for us, we've experienced of just like, you know what, those are the times where we're like, we're just gonna wait on this, because
it could be excitement, it could be your soul,
it could just be anxiety. You think
it's like God doesn't, he's at peace,
and it's like
even when he's at war, he's at peace.
And it's like with the Lord, it's like he's the maker of heaven and earth. And again, it comes down to trusting him that he is not going to have you miss out on the thing that he wants you to do. He's leading your life. And so, if there is like a lot of that anxiety, that comes with, am I going to miss the Lord? Am I supposed to be doing this? Am I supposed to? It's like he's greater than all of those things.
Yeah.
And we can just trust him as we walk with him.
Well, and I think one of the major keys to being able to walk with the Lord is humility.
Yeah.
Humility and teachability. You've got to be able to receive instruction and correction from the Lord, because a lot of times, you know, that wide path that you talked about, you know, it's because it's so wide because there's probably a lot of soul in there. And you hear something from the Lord, and right away your soul takes it and goes, oh, well, that must mean this, this, and this, and this. Oh, and if that's the case, then we'll have to do this, this, and then this will happen. And your soul just takes it and runs with it. And you start adding all these things to it. And it's like, well, let's peel back everything. And it's like, well, what exactly did God say? Just what we felt like the Lord said. And then that's when you start growing and you go, okay, you know what? I'm going to start just listening to what the Lord said, and that's it.
Yeah.
If I find myself going, oh, so that means, oh, well, what's 150 days after that day? Or, ooh, what's 49 days after that? Oh, 21 days time. Oh, what that? See, that's all soul stuff. And you don't realize it. And God's not jumping in and because he's not going to jump in and overcorrect. I tend to do that as a dad. You know, I kind of constantly jumping in and overcorrecting my kids because I want them to be, you know, and Michelle's like, you just got to let them just go. You got to, but there's a fine balance.
Yeah.
You got to teach them, but then you got to know when to let them go. And even that's got to be led by the Spirit, really, which I've learned in this past year. But it's like a lot of soul gets in there, and God's like, I can't overcorrect. There's going to be some tears that get sown in, and that's just going to happen. I'm okay with it. I know. Because if I have your heart, then you're going to get to the successful place. You're going to walk the path of, you know, classic example, Abraham, Joseph, and David. You know they were sitting there going, I must have heard wrong. I got a wrong prophecy from that Samuel dude. He was crazy. Abraham was probably like, oh, I probably messed up. I probably really messed up because this is not at all what I thought it was going to be or what was promised. Or you go through that. Yeah. And it's a long time of going through that. Some of the scriptures that you referenced are scriptures I've had since, man, I've known the Lord like 25 years now. Some of those scriptures I've had for like 23, 24 years. You know, and when we got married, they came into our relationship. So it's a journey and a process, just like you're talking about, you know. But the bottom line is, no matter what, like when we came to, no matter what, you got to have humility. Even if you go through hell and high water and fire on top. You know what I mean? Because when we came to Nashville in 2017, we had all kinds of soulish ideas and thoughts, and ooh, this is what's going to happen, and ooh, this is what's going to happen. And it's like, well, did God say that? No, he didn't. You know, and it's like you're not going to, and any parent out there can attest to this, and God's no different, that you're not going to save your kids from pain. But in fact, you can use that painful experience to propel them forward into successful life, so that they don't have to repeat the process, or at least they don't have to repeat it too many more times. Yeah. You know what I mean? That as you come to the Lord with, when we came here, and when we came here for, was it like a week, right? Yeah. In April 2017. And we had to come back. We didn't think we were coming back. We thought, oh, the Lord's moving us. But in the midst of all that crazy excitement, in the midst of all the soul, because see, I want to glorify the faithfulness of God and the ever-presence of God. No matter where you're at in your level of maturity, my ability to hear the Lord was right there. Because even though we were just mega excited, there was this sense in me that was going, hold on there, buddy. Hold on. But I ignored it. I was so excited that I was just like, no, this is the Lord. I don't think that's me just trying to, I don't know. Your soul goes through a process hearing from the Spirit. You know, and it's like, okay, this is the current recipe of maturity that Devin's going to have to go through, and it took my whole family through it, and we all went through it though. Yeah. But it was just because God said he was calling us as a family. It's like, okay, cool. See, and so when we went back, we were crushed. When we had to go back, it was just like, this is not what we thought. That's a soul thing. mind, will, and emotions. It's all soul stuff. Intuition is a thing of the spirit, where that's that John the Baptist leaping, where you see a scripture and it just jumps out, you just know. Mm-hmm. It's like a lot of these people, when you study like people who visited heaven, they just knew stuff. Mm-hmm. And they would meet people and people knew everything about them.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh yeah, I know you. Because in heaven, it's full of knowledge. There is nothing hidden. Yeah. You know, it's just knowledge. It's word of knowledge is what you breathe in heaven. And so when we came back, we were just crushed, and we just knew, like, okay, the enemy's really trying to hammer that. He's trying to take an opportunity to hammer us into a place of not having faith. And God's like, no, come to me, come humble yourself to me. And we did that, and then our journey just continued. It was almost like God's like, because of this, I'm going to give you I'm going to dust you off and clean you up, but I'm going to give you a little upgrade as well. Mm-hmm. In the spirit, you know what I mean? And just things started happening that were just different. So it's like the humility piece is huge.
Yeah.
Because you can't, without humility, you're going to get stuck on this one thing. And it's like, no, here is the most classic example of people getting stuck on something that they thought they heard from the Lord was not the Lord. This one's going to be my wife or my husband. I don't know that there's one greater than that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm serious. That one is a huge one. Why is that a huge one? Because it touches on probably one of the biggest desires of most people's heart. Mm-hmm. So then they feel like they've heard from the Lord for that guy or this lady, and then they just get stuck on it. I did for 9 years. Tells you how loyal I am. You got me forever. Now that I got the real thing, you ain't never getting rid of me. I'm just kidding. But seriously, that was a maturity process I had to go through, and God was with me the entire time, trying to say, Devin, can I pull you out yet? You know, it's like when you get burned. I don't know how many of you guys have been burned or experienced people who have had burns, but I've had burns before, and you've got to put the Band-Aid on the burn. I'm a really bad burn.
Yeah.
You know, that covers a good part of your skin. You've got to put the Band-Aid on the burn, and no matter what kind of chemicals and stuff they come up with, it still sticks. And so you kind of have to but you also have to change the bandage as well. Mm-hmm. So it's a kind of a painful process. Mm-hmm. And then there's some parts where, as you go to the doctor periodically, particularly if it's like a 3rd-degree burn or something, they have to cut away parts of the dead skin. But some of it is dead, but it's only mostly dead.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like it's only mostly, so they have to leave it attached to the live skin. And that's kind of like how our process can be sometimes of maturity, particularly when we're going through pain or hurt or woundedness or devastation or oh my gosh, my life blew up. God, where were you? And it's like, I'm there the whole time. Mm-hmm. Trying to help you out, Devin, the whole time. Trying to let you know that this girl is not your wife. From the very moment you thought you heard, I was there and I was going, it was a delicate situation. I didn't want to destroy you. Mm-hmm. You know, I'd rather have you go through what you went through than me just, God's not going to add to your confusion. Mm-hmm. He'd rather just take you and walk you through it than make it worse than it is. Because if you're already hearing from God and then God steps in and gives you this angelic visitation, it's like that's what you're going to expect every time. Yeah. It's like that's not how it works. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so it's like you got to be humble, you got to be teachable. So if you have that teachable heart, that teachable spirit, you can go through anything with the Lord, because the Lord will be in your anything and your everything, taking you through it. And God always pursues the desires of His heart, and His heart's desire for you is for you to prosper, for you to succeed, for you to be in intimate relationship with Him. Have that be your first prosperity and your first success, is that relationship with Him, and then He leads you into the things that He has for you. You know?
Yeah.
And so, go ahead.
I was just going to share too, I know for us, one of the, when we were first learning we went, we had that Sean Bowles, he did a whole thing about...
All about word of knowledge?
Word of knowledge, but really
course.
just, it really applies again, even to just hearing. It was really about hearing from the Lord.
Pretty much.
And
in a spirit of humility.
Yeah, and it's like, to be able to, you know, if you hear something from the Lord, you know, if you have that, the resources of another person, to just be like, hey, I heard this from the Lord. I'm not really sure if it is or isn't, but I'm just sharing this with you, and maybe you pray about it, you know, or like I said, writing things in the journal. But either way, it was just like to be in a place where, you know that there is the possibility that you're not hearing from the Lord because of the soul. And
he's got that scale.
Yeah.
It's like his wife will be like, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at with what you feel like you're hearing from the Lord? It's about a 5, and then she knows, okay, I know where you're at then.
Yeah.
You know, I know.
Yeah, and even for us, we've
adopted the scale.
Like the scale of just like,
to
okay,
a certain degree.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, like where do you think that? How sure, you know. Even kind of like the context of how you heard from the Lord and when it was, and you know, we try and have honest conversations with ourselves and with the Lord.
That is not as easy as you might think.
Yeah, but it has to be done in that, you know, like you're saying, in that place of humility and learning and saying, you know what, Lord, I'm gonna learn from this, but ultimately it's like, God, I am trusting you that you are leading and guiding my life.
I'm afraid I could be wrong, and it could be terrible if I was, but you know what? I believe I heard this, and I'm gonna step out on it. You know.
Yeah, and sometimes the stepping out is simply sharing it. You know, we've experienced that even last night, where it was just like, you know,
we got to talk about the stretching.
Yes.
Yes, we got to talk about the stretching. This leads us to the stretching.
Yeah. So there's going to be, as you walk with the Lord, He grows you in your faith. He stretches you. And I know we talked about this a couple of videos ago. I think it was just 2 videos ago. We were, where I really felt like that God was talking about faith, and like nothing is impossible with Him. And so there is a stretching that comes with the Lord when you are just walking by faith, and He will always stretch you. It could be super small things that maybe other people would be like, that stretched you? It's like, yep, that did.
Well, yes, it did.
But then there's other...
Don't diss me.
Yeah, so it's like there's other areas that maybe, you know, for you, you're like, you have no problem believing for, but this certain area, it's really difficult for you to believe for and have faith for. And so God, He stretches us in all areas, and it's and so
to make room for Himself.
Exactly. And so even last night, you know, Devin had heard something for the Lord for our family the night before, and it was just like,
I was like, I'm not saying that.
Yeah, and then it was like, but ultimately God just like, hey, share it. And so He shared it last night, and so that was really the faith. That was the stepping out of like, I'm gonna share this with you guys. I could be wrong, but I really do feel like this is what the Lord is saying.
It's out there now.
And so it's just like, all right, well, you know, and what's really good about it too is when you are able to share, a lot of times when it's in a good environment.
Right, when it's a healthy environment. It's a great environment to make mistakes in.
Yeah.
To learn.
It can be like,
it's great.
You know, we can either, you know, be listening like, okay, you know, we hear that, you know, is this the Lord? Is this not the Lord? But sometimes we don't even need to necessarily determine it in that. It's just like, well, thanks for sharing, you know, like that's something that, okay, you know, it's a stretch for you to share. If it's
the Lord will make it known, and He will keep bringing it up. And one of the things, can I share something? One of the things that I've picked up along the way that happens 100% of the time, if I think something's from the Lord, and a lot of times it will happen in excitement. I get excited and, ooh, I think this is the Lord. And then like the next day will come and there's nothing in my heart and mind about it. Literally 3-4 days will go by and I'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot. I thought I was supposed to do this from the Lord. I know right then. I'm like, that's not the Lord. That was clearly not the Lord. Yeah. It's like you're not even thinking about it. You had to be reminded of it. It's like, oh, suddenly I just totally forgot. Oh yeah, that's not the Lord. For me, I've learned in my process that just So God, like, He will teach you how, you get to know yourself through the process. And it's like, and I know when it is the Lord, I can't get away from it.
Yeah.
I literally, there's a vision I had in September of 2002 that has been with me. I mean, I think I've literally had it with me, I won't say every day, but definitely more than every other day. I've thought about it for over 17 years. Now, the Lord, that's not a tear. That's not a tear. God's not going to let that in. I think some girl's going to marry me and he's on me right away. He's like, oh man, we're going to, I'm not going to tell you this process is going to take 9 years, but but I'm going to be with you the whole time, just working in this. I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to turn it for the good. And I'm just going to work it in you, and God's with you. Doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter. I wanted to buy a blender. It was $150, a blender. But of course, at the time, making $10 an hour working at Walmart, $150 for a blender was a big deal. I wanted to buy a blender, and the Lord was right away. He was just like, like a friend just sitting there with me on the couch. He was like, you don't want that blender. Trust me. And I'm like, this is a blender, bro. What you care about a blender?
Well, and it's supposed to be, and it was like, oh, it's a good one.
It's this great blender. It's going to make you healthy and all that stuff. And, I'm just like, oh, I want that. I want that so bad. It's like, yes, but you don't want that one. You don't want that one. I knew nothing about the blender, really, except for what they were advertising. And then later on, but I was just like, okay, Lord, if it's because He cared about me.
Yeah.
And it was just like, okay, later on, I just took it by faith. I was like, all right, I really feel like the Lord is saying, don't get it. So I'm not going to get it. And later on, the reviews were going crazy. They had to come up with fake reviews to counter the true reviews, because everyone was saying this blender is a waste. It is a complete waste. And it's like they got some famous person to advertise the blender, but it is a waste. And I was like, blown away for a very extended amount of time. Yeah. Like, God, He saved me from buying a blender. Like, that's crazy. So how much more will God save you from things that aren't Him? So if it is Him, He's going to be constantly stoking the flame of it. If you feel like, oh, so-and-so is going to be my wife, or so-and-so is going to be my husband, but there's always a turmoil and an anxiety and a confusion, and where's the peace? Yeah. Even if there is turmoil and anxiety and confusion in your soul, there's got to be a peace from the Spirit that's just like, He's like this. In the midst of the storm, he's just sleeping in the boat. That's the peace of God in the midst of your storm. If you don't have that, then you got to let it go. Yeah. You need to release it. It doesn't matter what it is. There have been so many things, even on this journey, that we've just had to release. We just have to let that go, because this is clearly the Lord maybe have led us into it. And He's like, you see that? Yeah, okay, don't go there. Let's get going. You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, why did you take us here? Because He needed to. Yeah. Why do we have to go through this or go through that? Well, because we needed to. That's part of the process. Yeah. Why did Joseph have to be thrown into a pit to get to the palace? Why did that have to happen that way? Why did David have to be chased by his father-in-law, who is king? Sure, but it's the king of Israel is trying to kill him. Why did that have to happen? Because it had to happen. Yeah. And it's like there's times in our life where these things happen, and it's like, okay, is that going to stop you and shrink you back? Because that's an opposite of faith, shrink back. Hebrews chapter 10 says we're not of those who shrink back and displease God, but we move forward in faith, and that's what faith does. Faith moves forward. What Paul said, you want to tell me about your faith through your words, I'm going to show you my faith through what I do and how I live. Yeah. And it's the thing about God is, if you're walking by faith, your life is on the line. It doesn't matter how much money you have in your account, how many cars you have, how many houses you have, how many this you have, or how much you don't have. Hello. It doesn't matter. Your life is on the line. It's like, God, either you're going to do it or not. Either you're going to live by your faith through me in this day or not. And He will. Yeah. If you submit to Him, if you listen. God's not boring. The last, what was it, yesterday? We had a day of just deep deep rest and silence. It was deep. But even in the midst of that, God gave us little strobe lights of revelation and insight. But he wanted to make them real quick and easy and simple, so that we didn't go attached to him and go, ooh, God, what are you saying? What are you saying? What are you saying? Activity. And he's like, no, I don't want any of that. I want like a holy hush.
Yeah.
I want like and it was silent in heaven for about a half hour. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
God, wasn't it true? It was just like the whole day.
The whole day.
I mean, both of our God times were just like,
they were just very quiet and
got
just
nothing.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself is a testimony of the maturity process that God will take a person through. When you can get up, maybe you get up on stage and you're supposed to be the special speaker. I read this in a book one time by Cindy Jacobs. And the guy was just standing there and he was just like, I got nothing. I know I'm the special speaker and I'm supposed to come here with the word and all that, but I really got nothing. And God was doing something in him, but he was also doing something in the people and the church and everything by what this guy was willingly, humbly, obedient to do. Now his life is on the line. His whole ministry is on the line, because it's like, well, this guy, we invited him, he didn't even say anything. And it's like, that your reputation's on the line. And then he said in the book that they sat there for literally an hour just waiting on the Lord. And it was like, wow, look at what God's doing in the whole congregation. It had nothing to do with just that guy. And after about an hour, God was like, okay, come on, let's do this. And it was like, wow. It was just like, God, it's like the test that he gave Abraham. He was like, you've had the promise now for what, like 25, 30 years or whatever old Isaac was. And he's like, I want you to go kill him. Go sacrifice him to me. And Abraham's like, what? Like, oh, man. So it's like proof positive that's just like, even if you have the promise and you've been living in it for a long time, your heart still belongs to the Lord, and it's all about relationship with the Lord. And if your heart is about relationship with the Lord, I mean, you really do satisfy the purchase that the cross made. Because that's what the whole point is, to have sons and daughters. And sons and daughters are not about making them work and do stuff for you.
Yeah.
That's what ministry, that's the religion of ministry. Come on, let's go do something. And it's like, well, how about we be something, and out of our being comes our doing. And it's like with sons and daughters, it's about relationship. Yeah. With servants, it's about, okay, I've hired you to do a thing. Come on, do a thing. Oh, you're not doing the thing? Okay, fine, you're fired. Oh, you're doing a great job here, you're promoted. Whatever the case. But the bottom line is, when it's about sons and daughters and relationship, you really can't go wrong, because then again it touches back on, you're leaning on God's ability, not your own.
Yeah. And
you trust the Lord, like you were saying, you just trust that he's leading my life, and every step of the righteous is ordered by the Lord, and he's going to do what he's going to do. And you get to this point where you put pressure on yourself to do more than you can. It's like, if you've offered yourself to the Lord, you've prayed, you're like, God, my heart really is here for you, here I am, but you're still not hearing anything, then you must be in a good place.
Yeah. Because
what else are you going to do? You can't give more than yourself. Yeah. If you've given your entire self and nothing's happening, just wait. Yeah. That's all you can do. Even the scripture tells us, after you've done all that you know to do, stand. So that means there's going to be times when you've done everything that you know to do and nothing seems to be changing, then you just stand and wait. That standing is a place of faith in the Lord. So I hope this kind of touches on the topic. Hope it's not creating more questions, although that wouldn't be a bad thing, now would it?
No. Well, that was actually, I just wanted to say one other thing, was just like with the faith, I think we can just judge ourselves, and, it's like we think, oh, we didn't hear properly from the Lord, so that's bad. It's my fault. I must have done something wrong.
Yes, come on.
And it's like,
that is not the case.
No, and I think God just sees it totally differently. The way he sees it is like, well, you stepped out. Sure, you didn't. I didn't actually ask you to do that, but I don't know. I think he just sees it totally differently, and I think I think his heart is just delighted. His heart is delighted when we step out, when we think that we've heard him. And even if we're totally wrong, and it's like, okay, that definitely wasn't me, but I'm glad that he's there to walk with us through it. I just think kids are a perfect example because, they might try and do something for the first time, or maybe and they just
they want to wash your car for you,
and it's like
let's go wash the car.
Yeah, you totally did that wrong, but wow, I'm just so glad that you tried.
And then they went and they grabbed the Brillo pad.
Oh.
And they scrubbed the car nice and clean, and then when they rinsed it off, there were scratches everywhere. It's like, that's a true story, by the way. Not for us, but I met the person that happened to, and it was just like, oh, bless your heart.
So I just think that, that again, we need to allow the Lord, let God be judge over our lives, and to just trust that he is leading us, and that, every step of faith, whether we've really heard from the Lord or not, is growing us and helping us to be even more familiar with the voice of God in our life.
Well, and he's there, even if you haven't heard, he's there. I am talking to the Lord all day, every day, all the time. True or false?
True.
It's just happening. That's just the way it is. It's real. I've learned that relationship with God is like in everything I do. I just go to him and I talk to him. But it's like, the way God sees a failure is like this. I just got this vision. I felt like it was from the Lord. There's this, you got this kid on this Pee Wee football league, and he grabs the football and he starts running, and he's just so full of adrenaline, and he's just going, everyone's going, that's all he's hearing is, and he's getting close to the end zone, and it's just like, oh my word, I got a touchdown. This is amazing. I got a touchdown. It's like, and his team members come up to him and they're mad, and they're like, you went the wrong way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You just scored for the other team. No. And his overwhelming joy has turned to like deep sadness. It's just like, oh man. So it's like you've got your team members, they have their opinion on what you did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's the church in general. And then you have your, because everybody's got an opinion in the church, and theirs is from the Lord. And it's like, and then you have how you now feel.
Mm-hmm.
But then the Father, I'm about to cry. Don't let me cry, because this is a touching one. Woo! Then the Father comes on the field, and he's just like, that was so amazing. And it was just like, what do you mean that was amazing? I just totally messed up. Yeah, forget that. You were so fast. That was amazing. That dude, he actually tried to tackle you, and you like juked here. That was awesome. Dude, now just what you want to do is take that power and turn it that way. Go that way next time. You know what I mean? And so I felt like the Lord showed me that. It's like the Father's not caring on the fact that you ran the wrong way, and he's looking at everything that happened. Everything, how you responded, how you reacted. And it's like, well, my team members were totally mad at me. It's like, yeah, but you didn't retaliate against them. You didn't try to punch him in the face, or you didn't try to kick him. You didn't try to, you didn't get angry in return. And see, God's looking at everything that happens in the situation that you're in, that you're coming out of, that you're getting ready to go into, whatever it is. He's looking at the whole thing.
Yeah.
And he's just like, he's pleased. God like shared that with us in two very distinct ways just today.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I am pleased with you. And I shared that word last night, and the Lord said, man, I am so proud of you right now.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, I feel like my whole body is going through an earthquake. I feel like I'm about ready to crumble.
Yeah.
Because I just said what I said, and now I'm just like, but then there was a part of me later on that night, I was just like, no, Lord, no. I am not going back there. I'm not going into the soul and the fear. No, I'm going to learn what it means to walk by faith in a greater measure.
Yeah.
And that's where the stretching comes in, and we're losing our light.
Yes.
And we can keep going on about this topic. But it's been quite a bit of time
It
already.
has
Look at that
been.
timestamp. Anyway.
But
But
yeah,
be encouraged that God, it's up to Him. It is by grace we have been saved, not our ability to hear. But in humility, all cards on the table, all desires out there. This is what I feel like I've heard from the Lord, so I'm going to share it. That's how you walk by faith. Sometimes it's like, well, I really feel like I'm supposed to go here and do that. Well, all right, we'll go there and do that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, but we got to get this performance mentality thing out of our mind. That religion, that big, huge, nasty vultures of religion come and land on this perch called perform your religion, perform your duties as a Christian. It's like, no, if you have the right heart, then you have the right being, and out of your being will come right doing.
Yeah.
That's just going to happen. You know, when you're vitally united in the vine that is Jesus, he's going to feed you the sap that's going to produce the fruit on your branch.
Yes.
That's just going to happen. You don't got to, I'm trying to produce an apple. You don't, no, said no branch ever. You know what I'm saying? But that's what we do in our walk with God.
That's true.
It's constantly happening. And so, so just be encouraged. Wait, hold on a second. Patented closing. Go. Well, guys. I think that's all we have for you. We really don't. We got a lot more, but I don't want it to be like a 3-hour video.
Yeah.
You know.
But yeah, I just, hopefully this just encourages you guys and gives you just a little bit more about just how to walk by faith and just hearing from the Lord and.
Yeah.
And I think that's really
pretty much
all that we have
we're going to share right now. Yeah.
And
just for the simple fact that it's getting long and we're losing our light.
We really are.
Our kids are in darkness and shadow over there going, are you guys about done?
So until next time, guys, we just pray that you are blessed and we will see you soon.
Yep. Love you guys.
All right. Bye.
See ya.